Teachers of Reddit, who was the worst parent you've ever had to deal with? I was teaching a sweet 13-year-old girl, who obviously couldn't see the board very well and needed glasses as she was falling behind in class. I called her mother. This is in South London, so imagine a Jade Goody voice. Her mum told me to frick off and that I didn't need fricking glasses. My mother didn't need fricking glasses, so she doesn't need any fricking glasses, and hung up. In that situation you just feel for the girl. But sight tests are free for under 16s under NHS opticians. Surely she could at least have gotten it checked. As a music teacher, I had a mother of a student who would crash choir rehearsal for our Christmas concert and try to demonstrate how she had learned to sing O Holy Night when she had been a student. Not only was her pitch 3 cents short of $1, but it took the principal and custodian to escort her out of the rehearsal room. For their part, the students thought it was a planned comedy. It, however, was not. Pitch 3 cents short of $1. I have never heard that phrase, but I somehow know exactly what you mean. I've been pretty lucky. Most of my parents have been cool, supportive, and laid back. I did, however, have one mom who stalked me heavily online, not because she liked me, but because she wanted to constantly talk about her daughter's supposed lack of progress. She sent me friend requests repeatedly, showed up at the school once while I was teaching to ask me why I didn't accept her request. She somehow got my personal email and began emailing my personal email rather than my work email. She also told her daughter to follow me home one day so she could stop by sometime. Thankfully the daughter told me about this in advance and she didn't do it. It finally ended when the daughter was pulled from the school only after a lawsuit was filed declaring negligence on our part for meeting the student's needs. The daughter was a straight B student who didn't really act out too much and seemed to enjoy school. Sounds like she was planning to sue the school from the get-go. You post one thing on Facebook during school hours and she would use a screen cap in court. You didn't accept her friend request and she decided to spy on you at home. When that failed, she used your lack of interaction as an excuse to go ahead and sue like she was planning anyways. Hope she didn't get a dime. I had a parent of a kindergartner tell me, in all seriousness, that she was told by their church prophet that my student was sent to lead the world into salvation. Her little girl was the second coming of Christ. Gee, no pressure. Here, teach the Christ child to read. Plus, she was one of the meanest children I ever taught. So, I never heard anything about how the rest of the staff felt about these parents. I thought they were awesome. I do know whenever they showed up after this story took place, people got super quiet. This story is from another thread called What's a Time You Saw a Butthole Kid Get What They Deserved, but it's also about parents you wouldn't want to deal with. So here it is. So, my very first job was as an office assistant in K6 school. I was about 14 or 15 and it was a work experience program. I worked there on Tuesday and Thursday mornings for a few weeks. Every day after recess, or at least every day I was there, a kid would come into the office and complain that these 3 boys were bullying him. He was a bit of a chubby kid, and clearly this was getting worse and worse over time. As far as I could tell, these kids were harassing this other kid daily, and nobody was doing anything about it, or they were just half-assing punishment. Either way, every day I worked, kid came into the office to complain about the bullies. Until one glorious, amazing day, a day I won't ever forget. The recess bell rings. About 10 minutes later, a teacher is helping 3 kids through the office to the nurse's station, and they were beat up. Bloody noses, ripped clothes, etc. About 2 minutes later, the chubby kid gets brought in and taken to the principal's office. I could see the satisfaction in his eyes. He looked at me as he walked by and his eyes just screamed to me I told them I'd do IT. They didn't believe me. I hear the principal ask the kid why would you do that, kid replies my mom told me to. About 20 minutes go by and the kid's mom shows up. She's choked, like, red in the face, about to breath fire, kind of mad. She storms into the principal's office and I hear her scream, hey butthole, how would you like IT if me and 2 of my friends came here and beat you up every day? Then nobody would do anything about IT. How would you feel? Just then, a man walked into the office. He says that must be my wife and walks into the office. I immediately hear him scream, hey butthole, How would you like it if me and 2 of my friends came down here and kicked your butt every day followed by some crap I couldn't make out? In the end, the bully kids got suspended for 2 weeks, the chubby kid a week. I can only imagine how the principal felt after having 2 irate parents just lose it on him. And I'll never forget the look in chubby kid's eyes. Not the worst but definitely up there with the stupidest. Currently dealing with a parent who thought that I taught their kid about jihad. We had holidays around the world before our winter break. Each teacher took a holiday and explained it through activities, videos, music, food, etc. I chose Diwali and decorated my room in lights. Had a fun writing coloring activity and a child-friendly video about the holiday. The student then goes home and tells the parent that I was teaching about killing and about a religion that started with a J. The parents questioned their child to the point of him crying. I asked him about it and he said that they wouldn't let him leave it alone and he ended up crying for a while about it. The parents said they knew it wasn't the Jewish religion so then it had to be jihad. What? Jihad? That's a religion. And if it was a religion why would I be teaching that to my elementary classroom? Seriously. Facepalm. The best is that the parents CC'd my boss on the email without talking to me at all about it. My boss usually falls on the side of his teachers so I'm not worried about that but I just couldn't believe a well-educated adult thought that jihad was a religion. And she asked her husband and he agreed it had to be jihad as well. If that is the mindset going in that child's home they have a lot to overcome. Beat her kid, sent her back covered in bruises, then threw an absolute shit fit when we filed a CPS report. We're mandatory reporters. You stupid bee. You did the right thing. My wife is the principal of an expensive Chinese daycare. Like, really expensive. Every parent drives a BMW or better. A 3-year-old once ran away from the group during a field trip. The teacher, an incredibly mild woman, caught a kid and asked him if he thought what he did was good or bad. She didn't hit him, she didn't even criticize him or make him go in timeout. She just asked him if he thought it was a good thing to do. The mother freaked out, not because her child nearly went missing. She was furious that any type of discipline whatsoever was administered. My wife was on the phone with her until 2 AM while this woman screamed. She has no right to tell my child what to do. Who does she think she is? Fortunately, the woman became angry enough that she pulled her kid out a few days later. But that teacher is now so terrified to discipline her students that her class is out of control. I am a teacher, but this is not my story. My buddy from college's wife is a 2nd grade teacher. She teaches a little girl whose brother, I think in 3rd grade, attends another school. After winter break, she asks this girl how her break was, etc. Normal stuff for a teacher invested in their students. The little girl says it was good. Blah, blah. My friend's wife then asks about her brother. She responds with, "Oh, he's dead." Teacher is taken aback, but thinks maybe the little girl is just mistaken about something. She presses a little further, and the girl is getting frustrated because the teacher doesn't seem to understand that he's dead. Dad got mad and he's dead. This last statement really freaked her out because the father of these 2 children is a convicted felon. This is the same little girl who got into her dad's crystal M stash and came to school cranked on M. Seriously. So she texts a teacher at the brother's school asking if anyone has seen him since school started back. No one had. I don't know any updates and I feel sick every time I think about it. TL. DR. 2nd grade student says brother is dead and no one knows if she's serious because dad is a rimhead. Jesus freak, I hope they called CPS and the police and the National Guard. My first teaching job, I had a 5th grader who was the worst, Jean-Ralphio voice. He would literally just stand up in the middle of class, laugh like a madman, and run out of my classroom. He also did a few things in the bathroom that no sane child would ever do, mostly involving fesses. I was new, so I asked around to see if this kid had a history of bad behavior. All of his previous teachers said he was actually one of the better behaved kids, and he was pretty smart. No previous history of this kind of attitude or behavior whatsoever. They were baffled. And by we I mean all the 5th grade teachers and the principal, met with his parents 4 times in 2 months, trying to determine the cause of all of this. In the first 3 meetings, his parents were cooperative, but seemed a little slow. They couldn't think of any reason why little Jamal, we'll call him Jamal, would act in such a way. In the fourth meeting, I said, listen, kids don't just flip a switch like this. Jamal has zero history of disciplinary problems until this year. Can you think of anything that happened between 4th and 5th grade that might affect his psychological makeup? They said, oh, Jamal's uncle was found shot dead in our home this summer. Jamal was the one who discovered his body. Something that could have been brought to my attention yesterday. I just got back from an internship at a German gymnasium. High school directed towards kids who would normally go to college after. This school was also a boarding school and one of the kids is a complete T-waffle. He steals and drinks and bullies everyone else, then plays dumb as if he didn't know what was up. His mother is probably the biggest problem parent I had to deal with at the school, but I was an intern so the real teachers had to deal with way worse, I believe. His mother ignores everything bad we told her about her kid. He is a son who can do no wrong to her, and he's too fragile to ride the train home, so every other weekend on holidays she drives across Germany to pick him up. He got caught stealing from 3 other kids that lived next door to him, but his mom always gives some bull's excuse like, oh, he's under so much pressure, you all just blame him for everything. Meanwhile, Dickless is growing up to have no future because he refuses to participate in school and can't stop acting out. There is probably a problem here that needs treatment, but I am a college student and those teachers are way overworked as it is. Not a teacher, but I had a friend who is a preschool teacher. She had a kid that told her she hated seatbelts and won't wear it on the bus. Friend spoke to mother about it. The mother said she screams and refuses to wear it in the car, so she just gave up. The mother was speeding to get to the hospital on a rainy day, kid in the backseat jumping around. She hit water and skidded into a tree and the child was ejected. Died on impact. Found the article after the crash. Did not hit a tree but flipped the car. Child still ejected and died of severe impact to the head. The article does not say she wasn't wearing a seatbelt, but it is known that she was not. Mother was not charged. And you can't even say anything, because then you're a heartless monster who doesn't understand their pain. My father once had a parent pull a gun on him during a parent-teacher conference. Eventually they got him to calm down and put it away. One of my favorite moments. I walk into the school office to check my mailbox. A parent of one of my students sees me and says very loudly, almost screaming, "Oh, finally, look, everyone, I found a teacher. Do you realize that I left work early to come here after school to talk to my son's teachers about his report card, and you are literally the only teacher I have found. I went from classroom to classroom and everyone is gone. Do you know what time it is? It's 3:45 p.m. School ended 15 minutes ago. 15 minutes. And you're the only teacher still here. Can you explain to me why everyone is gone? Can you explain to me why every teacher has left the building when school just got out?" I paused, waiting to see if there was more. When I realized he had finished, I said, "All the teachers are in the library. We're having a faculty meeting." The look on his face was priceless. He knew he was in the wrong, but by that point he had committed so fiercely to his anger and righteousness that he couldn't just apologize. So he said, "Well, that's just irresponsible," and he walked out of the office. Ha ha ha, what a prick. Getting to tell him that must have been so rewarding. I worked at a school for blind and visually impaired kids. This woman had a daughter that was blind and mentally delayed but otherwise healthy. They were referred to our school when the daughter was in her mid-teens. Her mother did so much for this girl that she considered completely helpless. She was not, that her legs atrophied and she couldn't stand on her own. We dealt with our share of nightmare parents of various stripes, from the completely uninvolved to control freaks who knew every bureaucratic trick to pull to get what they wanted, but this one, the one that cared so much for her daughter that she crippled her even further, is the one I think back to the most often. It was a constant battle to get her to back off and let her daughter learn to be an independent person. I had the parents of a Muslim student demand to me that their son be excused while my student teacher taught lessons to the class because she is a woman and no son of theirs would be taught by a woman. I told them that's fine, but he's still responsible for the materials he missed. This would be every class over a 3-week period. They freaked out, called me a sectarian and went to the principal over my head, who promptly told them that their son would be responsible for any material he missed. Good lord. I work with a student with an intellectual disability in journalism class. One day, the student interviews a really important political figure that's closely tied with activism for individuals with intellectual disabilities. The student finishes writing the article and there's only one issue. She needs to email her article to the editors and cannot seem to log into her email account because she forgot her password. So, I volunteer to email it to the student editors. No harm, no foul. Then, the next day I receive an email from her mother saying that the terminology the student used, she was quoting the politician, were my words and that I do not use person first language, a huge no-no in education. She told me my language was offensive, unprofessional, and a sign that I clearly do not understand the complexities of addressing people with intellectual disorders. What offensive thing did the politician say? He said students with special needs instead of saying students with intellectual disorders. Honestly, it's not like he dropped the R-bomb, but based on the parent's reaction the student might as well have written that in the article. The parent CC'd all of the student editors and attached a bunch of Huffington Post articles on the topic. It was insane. The students kept approaching me, asking how they should handle the article. I just told them to ignore it and I'll deal with it. The entire ordeal was horrible and I was just trying to be a nice person by being the email liaison between the student and the editors. I've never received an apology and the parent refuses to acknowledge me whenever I wave at her when she's visiting. Obligatory. I am not a teacher, but my roommate is a preschool teacher. She has a student in her class who is very rambunctious, and she has a pretty good line of communication with the boy's mother, as she is not in denial about her son's behavioral issues. She also has a girl in her class who is spoiled rotten, used to getting everything she wants immediately. One afternoon, my roommate was waiting on parents to pick up the kids, and she was chatting with the mother of rambunctious boy. All of a sudden, the mother of spoiled girl bursts into the room. She starts yelling at rambunctious boy. Apparently he had pushed spoiled girl on the playground the day before. Spoiled girl didn't tell my roommate or the other teacher, just her mom. And she also told her mom that rambunctious boy didn't get punished, since she didn't say anything to the teachers. Mom decides to take this out not on the teachers, but on this 4-year-old boy. She screams at him not to touch her daughter and that there would be consequences and blah blah. Obviously, rambunctious boy starts crying. My roommate and the other mother are just in shock, and spoiled girl and her mom turn and leave in a huff. Congratulations, lady, you just bullied a 4-year-old into crying. I really hope you feel good about yourself. A parent created an extremely extensive treatise on how the traditional methods of grading should be scrapped. They ended up emailing it to every staff member in the school. They did not, however, ever address the fact that their child did not turn in a single homework assignment between December and June. I'm not a teacher either, but my wife was one in a poor area near Chicago. I've heard 100 horror stories, but the one I always think about is this one. My wife's school was having a really hard time involving their parents in their kids' homework. The kids on average have poor test scores, poor intelligence, low motivation, etc. Common problems today. So what they tried to do was start an after-school program where parents would come in and help their kids with their homework. Kinda defeats the purpose of homework, but whatever. None of the parents showed up. Not surprising, I suppose. Here's where it gets interesting. So they decided they were going to raffle off a ham at each after-school homework event. Amazingly, parents started showing up. I would have to drive with my wife every once in a while to Walmart to buy a ham, because the parents showed up for a 1 in 500 chance to win a ham. They wouldn't come in for their kids, but they'd come in for a freaking chance at ham. Blows my mind to this day. My mom was a substitute for about 6 months and she got to meet the parents. This is one of her stories I may paraphrase though, so forgive me. My mom worked as a substitute teacher and subbed for a teacher for a few months while the normal teacher was on maternity. While they were having a meeting with parents, my mom, who had about 4 months with the kids, this is 4th grade mind you, to learn their names and a bit about them. One parent who came in was flustered, beet red about their child having low scores, low C's mid D's in most courses. My mom had noticed that the child had not turned in much of her homework, and while she got some back, it was clearly in the parents' handwriting and often with very few mistakes, especially in math, which had been honestly what had been keeping the Child's GPA in check because in-class work was often riddled with mistakes and led her to believe the kid wasn't paying attention. When my mom got to meet the parents who were flustered by the grade, she brought up the difference between the writing and questioned if they were doing the work for her, which would damage the child's education down the road. My mom also brought this to the principal and he just let it off as the parents just writing for the lazy kid. While she got yelled at, a bit of spite ran over and the teacher was due to return in 2 months, so my mom did what any evil genius would do. She cut homework in half and made most of the work in class. The child's C's dropped to D's and the D's to F's, which the parents returned even more upset at my mom intentionally failing the child rather than her trying to motivate the parents to helping their kid focus on classwork. Apparently it worked afterward when the principal shrugged, saying it's her lesson plan and a lot of other students are arguably jealous of her lack of homework, and the kid began to focus more in class. When my mom checked in on the teacher around the end of the year when she subbed for another class, the kid was rolling on high C's low B's and the parents' handwriting had stopped. TLDR. My mom caught parents doing their kids' schoolwork for them and the kid and his parents got their act together. I'm a teacher in Korea and Korean mothers are known for being super involved in their kids' educations, and really over the top, to the point where there are classes for kids like mommy and me type of thing where moms sit in class with the kids, seemingly so they have first-hand experience in class to complain about the teacher's accent, appearance, intellect, attention per student. One of my classes is only 2 students, a boy and a girl, and the boy always bullies the girl. A few weeks ago he threw her water bottle in the trash and she was upset about it. OBV. His mom called the school and started complaining about how the girl always bothers him and that she is affecting his learning and always starts any tiffs they have in class. Which is totally not true. He is 100% the instigator, but pretty much because students pay our salaries as Hagwons. After school programs, private English schools get no funding from the Korean government. Us teachers just kind of have to sit there and take it. However, the Korean teachers take the brunt of this and foreign teachers are just here to practice English as glorified babysitters and don't deal with parents directly. However, in this incident I was involved because all of the teachers who dealt with the kids were asked to comment on their mutual treatment. I do private tutoring for the Scions of Privilege in Manhattan, so I have a lot of crazy parent stories. But the worst, by far, I was working with a Jewish family. The parents were pretty standard issue Reform Jews, not particularly religious. The son, who was a high school junior, was in the midst of exploring pretty serious ultra-Orthodox Judaism. He changed his name. I forget what to. I only met with his family once, for reasons you'll see below. His mother continued to call him his old name, even though it made him visibly upset. So I had been hired to work with him on the essay for the SAT, which is kind of ridiculous in and of itself, as it's a trivial part of the test, but this family was rolling in money and didn't care. At the time, I worked for a pretty prominent test prep company based out of Manhattan, so I was using their materials. I had previously actually run a big part of research and development for the company, so I had been in charge of making the materials we were using, and had written a fairly significant amount of the advice myself. I sit down with the son and get ready to start to work with him. The mom sits down at the table with us. I quickly explain that I prefer to work one-on-one with the student, and that I'd be happy to answer any questions she might have after the session is done. She insists that I'm paying. I want to learn. To the poor kid just sighs. So I start. I'm explaining things. Every couple of minutes, the mom interrupts and points to something in the book and says, "What about that sentence there? Why don't you read that to him? I want you to say that to him. I wrote that sentence, Mom. What I'm giving now is more in-depth and nuanced than what is in the book." This went on for the entire session, with the mother trying to tell me what to do, the son sighing and rolling his eyes and asking his mother to please leave, and Mike trying to give this kid more information than is in the pages of a test prep manual and trying to get the mom to leave us alone. And the end of the session, the mother asked when we should schedule our next appointment. I politely tell her that there will be no next appointment because I can't work with them. What? But you were wonderful. And that was the first time, but not the last time, that I fired a client. I know I was. You take care now. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.